Hi everyone! Today's video is all about watercolors, gouache and mushrooms. I don't know what it is with me and mushrooms. I think that they remind me of a world somewhere in between reality and fantasy for some reason. They seem a little bit out of this world, but it's fun to know that they exist out there and they come in so many shapes and colors that I find them fascinating. I think that for something that actually exists, they are way too mysterious and mystical and fantasy-like, so I enjoy that balance between dream and reality. So anyway, this past week I have been creating a lot of landscapes with gouache. Gouache was always my go-to medium for sketching and quick studies, but now I took it a little bit more serious. I wanted to take a break from pastels, which is something that I often do. I change subjects and mediums. I suppose you already know that about me if you're not new to this channel. And this time I wanted to see how I can stick to the same subject but change the medium and see what I can do with that. So gouache was the first thing that came to my mind. I took out my sketchbook. I did a lot of paintings that I didn't record, unfortunately, but this time around I took a nice Archie's watercolor paper and made an actual painting of it. A small one, but a painting nonetheless. And you're probably wondering by now why I'm talking about gouache and I'm painting with watercolors, but gouache was my main focus for these paintings. The previous ones were actually pure gouache, but this one has some watercolor in it, and I will explain the reason why right now. I was never actually good with watercolors. I can't really make my brain work the way they work, and I have a hard time keeping my whites and my lights and all of this process that watercolors require. I also have a hard time controlling water, but I think that's because I don't have much experience with them. The way the color changes after the water dries is also a mystery to me, and it creates a lot of issues in my artworks when I do this with watercolors, so I've never actually focused on them too much. I almost gave them away, to be honest. I didn't even remember where I had last put them. But painting with gouache this past week made me realize that I have a hard time getting fuzzy, blurry backgrounds when I paint with gouache, and it occurred to me that maybe I can do that with watercolors and then go over it with gouache, which was actually a brilliant idea for my standards. What I mean by that is that I could actually finally use my watercolors and not care about the messiness too much. I didn't have to worry about the colors being muted down and changing. I didn't have to worry about clean edges and blurry edges and all of this that I couldn't really understand about watercolors. I could just put down the water, play around with watercolors, which is something that I thoroughly enjoy, and then go to what I know best, which is gouache and the way gouache works, which actually makes a lot of sense for the way my brain works. I can't really call the watercolor part an underpainting because I actually used a lot of it showing through for my background because I wanted it to stay a little bit muted and blurry, and it works extremely well because it doesn't really lift off when I go over it with gouache, so I don't really have to leave the foreground clean in order to paint whatever I want on top of the watercolor, which is something that I really enjoyed and I definitely want to explore more. Which got me thinking while I was working on it that I would have never done that in the past if it wasn't for the past couple of months working with pastels and alcohol washes. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I will explain what I mean. I have been very hesitant to be loose with my art. I have already mentioned that as well. And I think the reasons I struggle with watercolor a lot is that too. The fact that they have a character of their own and they move around, and sometimes you can't really control what they will do and you have to go with the flow and create something that they agree on, if that makes sense. I couldn't really make myself accept that with watercolors and just work around the way they work. Lately, when I painted with pastels and I tried out the alcohol wash, which is also something that has a mind of its own, and it drips and it flows and it creates shapes and textures at the background that you can't really control exactly. It was fascinating, and I felt safe there because it was something that I knew. Pastels are my comfort zone, so experimenting with something like that for my underpainting was less scary than when doing it with some medium that I don't really know. So having tried that in a place where it feels like home with pastels, it was much easier to me to feel courageous to try the same thing with other mediums as well. It is the same concept for me with watercolors and gouache. Putting down the watercolors, not really caring if they do their own thing and they move around and they create shapes that I didn't really intend them to create, is okay with me now because I know that I can go over it and use it to my advantage. To have that looseness in my painting without a lot of effort, and then also have the control to create exactly what I want on top. That combination of the two is fascinating to me. And the fact that I can change subjects and mediums and have something to take from one medium and apply it to the other is also fascinating to me. It always felt to me that this need of mine to change all the time, to keep using different mediums and painting different subjects was holding me back. And as far as social media goes and business plans goes, it is holding me back. I guess it's good to have a niche and stick to it and hone your skills on one sector only, but that's something that bores me to death, at least for now. So I didn't want to set with that. I wanted to just follow my heart and do whatever feels good, but I now realize that this too has its benefits, and that's pretty exciting for me because I know that I am a person that likes variety and I like changing things around, and knowing that this could also have benefits apart from setbacks, it's actually very fun. Knowing that if I learn something about a subject or a medium, I can then apply it on the next subject or medium that I will want to work on is actually making me feel better about my choices and making me feel more free about changing a lot. All that matters, the way I see it now, is that I keep creating. It doesn't matter what I create or how I create it. I know that I can learn something and apply it somewhere else. And I know that every time I come back to a medium that I have worked with before or a subject that I have tried in the past, I can see how all my experience on other things in the meantime make me a different artist. I come back with a different mindset, with different skill set, and feel the difference, and that's quite exciting. So if you're anything like me and you like variety and you like working on different things for different periods of times, I'm here to say that that's okay too. We are getting bombarded with the idea that we have to have a niche and focus on that and not change all the time. Do the same thing, post the same thing, be consistent, have a body of work that talks about who you are and you will be recognized for. But we're not all made like that. And that's okay too. So we can focus on the benefits we get from that variety and that practice with different art mediums and subjects and just see how we can work with who we are instead of changing for social media or algorithms. So anyway, I feel like I repeated myself a little bit here in the end, so I'll stop. I know you get the point, you understand the meaning of what I'm trying to say, and maybe you may have a way to apply that to your own art and life as well. I sure hope you enjoyed this little painting and the combination of watercolors with gouache, and I would like to encourage you to be open to new ideas, to explore different combinations and see how you can apply whatever you have learned to something different to improve your art and be bold with your choices and your experiments. Lastly, before I go, I would like to very quickly mention that I am creating prints of all these mini gouache paintings. Some of them are in my sketchbook, so they will be available only as prints, and those that are created on actual paper will be available as originals as well. I will be updating my Etsy shop often the next few days, so keep your eyes open if you would be interested in that. That's all. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a thumbs up before you go and consider subscribing to my channel for more videos like this. Hit the bell button to get notified whenever I upload a new video, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, be safe, be happy, and keep going for your dreams. Bye!